Julia asked, unable to hide her excitement. Well, based on the photos posted 5 minutes ago, they are at the men's section. Cedric, this is all your fault. If you agreed to let Adriana buy clothes for you, we would have bumped into them. Natasha scolded Cedric. Natasha, you didn't want us to go to the men's section either, Adriana said, rolling her eyes. Look, even if you guys tried to run after them based on the location in posts, this mall is so big, the odds of you bumping into them is really low. Cedric knew that. Even if they didn't chase them, the group they were dreaming about would find them. Cedric already had his suspicions that Ayana even knew where they were planning to have their dinner. It wouldn't be too difficult for her to get someone to ask every restaurant in the mall to figure out where Cedric and Adriana were having dinner after shopping. As much as I don't want to admit it, Cedric is right, Julia sighed. She too wanted to get a chance to meet the 4 princes and Eric Chan, but the odds weren't in their favor. Julia, which of the 5 princes is your favorite? Natasha asked. I think Raymond Lawrence is the most charming, Julia said with a blush. What, haven't you heard the rumor that he's gay? Natasha giggled. Behind them Cedric wanted to laugh. He hadn't heard this rumor yet. He isn't gay, Julia defended her hopes to meet and fall in love with Raymond Lawrence. Julia, think about it, he's really good looking, he's really rich, and from what I've heard he's really smart, and he has never had a girlfriend. He doesn't even have paparazzi photos with any girls. Natasha recounted all the points that were enumerated in the forum that was trying to point out that Raymond Lawrence was gay. Cedric knows him. Is he gay? Adriana quickly asked Cedric. I don't know him that well. Cedric was sure Ray wasn't gay, but he wasn't going to save Ray from rumors like this. How about you, Adriana? Cedric aside. Which of the 5 princes would you choose? Julia said in an attempt to shift the attention. I'd still choose Cedric, Adriana laughed. Not one of the choices, please say you'll choose the Reyes heir, Sophia nagged. Definitely not him, it's his fault my husband has to work late nights all the time, plus he's too cold, Adriana said. When Cedric heard this he wanted to laugh. If only Adriana knew she was describing the same person. What do you mean he is too cold? Natasha was curious with what Adriana had just said. Remember, I met him for the Elysium Mall project. The girls nodded in reply, their full attention now on Adriana. Well, he just gave off this cold aura. He didn't talk at all, and compared to his friends he just seemed stiff the whole time. Who would want to be with a guy like that? Cedric, don't you ever dare turn into someone like your boss, Adriana commanded Cedric. At that time Cedric was just so worried about seeing her in person as his persona, as the Reyes heir, that he couldn't speak. All he could do was just stare at her, and when she was presenting their plans he was just so proud and in awe of his wife that he didn't know how to react anymore. He knew the day, if he revealed to Adriana who he really was, she would feel like she didn't get the project because of her skills, but rather because she had fallen into the kind of person her family wanted, someone whose connections could be maximized to their benefit. From their early days together, Cedric knew that Adriana was more capable than people believed. Whenever they saw her beautiful face they began to assume that she was not capable of anything other than looking pretty. Cedric witnessed how professors in university dismissed her ideas because they only saw her for her beauty and not for her intelligence. He wanted Adriana to show the world that she was more than just a pretty face. Earth to Cedric, are you there? Adriana's voice drew Cedric out of his thoughts. He just smiled at her and nodded. Come on, I'm exhausted. Let's go eat. Adriana interlocked her fingers with his as they walked to the hangout. The hangout was one of Adriana's favorite restaurants. It had a more relaxed ambiance, and the restaurant was designed with school memorabilia from the top 4 universities in their country. It was really targeted to attract alumni of those schools, but soon enough people who also dreamed of going to any of those schools began to frequent the place as well. When they got to the hangout, there was a large crowd of people snapping photos and trying to take a look inside. I wonder why people are trying to take photos. Do you think something happened inside? Sophia said as she tried to take a look inside. I hope not. I was really looking forward to eating here today. Julia frowned. Maybe there is a famous artist inside. These people look like fans, Sophia guessed, based on how the people were acting. Hey Julia, isn't that man over there your dad's assistant? Adriana pointed to a man in his 50s. Yeah, hey Mr. Anthony, Julia waved in. walked towards the man. Miss Julia, so nice to see you, Mr. Anthony was still trying to get a look inside the hangout as he spoke to her. What's going on here? Julia asked. Well, the hangout cancelled all their reservations today for a private party. According to business rumors, the heir might be in there. Your dad wants me to get a meeting with him. Cedric raised an eyebrow at what Mr. Anthony said. What, they didn't even send a message. Adriana was mad. She was already having such a bad day and this heir makes it worse by booking the whole restaurant. That's impossible. We all got cancellation messages and a free dinner. A girl in the crowd said, I'm just here to see the 5 princes. They walked in not too long ago. Adriana, why don't you try talking to the manager? Cedric already knew what stunt his sister was trying to pull. He was pissed, since it could end up exposing him to his wife and her friends. The manager came out and asked for Adriana's name and reservation number. She went back in and after a while came out with 6 bodyguards. Chapter 41. The 6 bodyguards scared Adriana and her friends. Look, sirs, we just wanted to check our reservation, Julia said as she took a step back. Miss, don't worry, they are here to escort you in. Everyone outside was shocked. Many began snapping photos of the group that was going in. A random social media user noticed that one of the girls was Adriana Hernandez, whom according to rumors had managed to steal the heir's heart. What was odd though was that she was there with her husband. Earlier while Adriana was talking to the manager, Cedric sent a message to his sister. He quickly sent her a message. Seed, we're outside, don't expose me. Ayana, awesome, I'll ask the bodyguards to let you in. Seed, again, if anyone finds out I'll make sure dad forces you to marry someone from another country. Ayana, dad would never do that. Seed, fine, I'll make you marry Ray. Ayana, you're gross, I'll behave. Seed, tell the others too. Ayana, yes boss. Sophia, Natasha, and Julia went first. Following the bodyguards, Cedric held Adriana's hand and lifted it to his lips to give it a kiss. Why are you being sweet? Adriana was suspicious of Cedric's motives. Cedric just smiled at her and they walked in after the bodyguards. As usual, the 4 princes had managed to group together at one end of the table and the girls were at the other. When Ayana saw Adriana walk in, she waved. Hey Adriana, when I heard you reserved a table here too, I knew we were always meant to be friends. Ayana got up and took Adriana away from Cedric. Cedric, you can sit with the boys, Ayana said in a cold tone. She was mad at her brother for reprimanding her. Cedric shook his head and took a seat next to Ray. This is crazy, Miguel sighed. It was loud enough for Ayana's friends to hear. In their minds they thought Miguel thought it was crazy for him to sit next to an assistant, when in fact Miguel was commenting on the fact that Ayana booked a whole restaurant just to talk. Miss Ayana, I really don't think this is appropriate, Adriana said in a quiet voice. Why? 'Cause of the rumors. Let me tell you this, Adriana, my brother has loved one and only one woman for the past 8 years. Ayana looked at her brother and winked. Cedric simply sighed at his sister. Older brother really fell hard, didn't he? Nicole teased, although she was talking to Ayana, she was actually teasing Cedric in the other table. Meantime, Sophia, Julia, and Natasha were busy staring at the 4 princes and Eric Chan. Even if this was their second time meeting these men, they were still in awe and very shy. What would you say or do when all of your idols somehow ended up in a private gathering with you? Their mind was mush. Natasha was the first to regain her footing. She immediately whispered to Adriana if they could take a photo with the boys. You ask them yourself. Adriana too was too shy to ask. But Adri, you're the one Miss Ayana invited out, Natasha reasoned. Adriana knew she wouldn't win this discussion with Natasha. Miss Ayana. Adri, don't call me miss. Just call me Ayana please, Ayana interrupted. Well, Ayana, my friends were wondering if they could have their photo taken with, well, the 4 princes and Mr. Eric Chan. Adriana had no idea how she should refer to the 4 princes, so she took a while thinking on how to refer to them. Hey, boys, Ayana called. The boys, except Cedric, looked up. Adriana's friends are asking if they could take a photo with you. You don't mind? Right, Ayana was already pulling Natasha towards the boys. Since the girls didn't know who he was, Cedric was forced to talk to his friends and their sisters via messages. Cedric Reyes, I am so lucky I don't have any fans. By the way, Natasha is part of every forum that talks about you. Miguel Chan, I wonder how much shock it would be if they found out Eric was our older brother. Nicole Chan, they'll say Eric is better looking than you. Ray Lawrence, Eric is better looking than you. Cedric Reyes, this is why they think you are gay, Ray. Ray Lawrence, what, they think I'm what? Ayana Reyes, come to think about it, isn't he? Ayana locked her phone and positioned Natasha, Sophia, and Julia in front of the boys. Cedric ducked and avoided being part of the photo. Adriana, don't you want to be in this photo too? Julia called. No, I'll pass, Adriana said with a laugh. After taking a photo with their idols, the girls relaxed a little bit. How about this guy? Veronica said, passing her phone to Nicole. He's cute, Nicole giggled. Anna, stop showing my sister photos of guys, Miguel called from the other table. We're just looking, Katerina told Miguel. You're too much like your brother. Katerina, Eric joked. Hey, Adriana, aren't you a fan of Eric? Ayana asked. Adriana meekly nodded. Eric, come here and take a photo with Adriana. Ayana called him over. Adriana began to blush. Cedric was already glaring at Ayana and Eric. Eric couldn't help but laugh out loud. Why don't I take a photo and post it? Eric said with a wink. Don't, you'll get dragged into the rumors about me. Adriana shook her head violently. Are you referring to the rumors that Mr. Reyes has a crush on you? Eric asked. Eric, Cedric hissed. Eric suddenly burst out laughing. It seemed none of the girls had heard Cedric. Eric quickly took a selfie with Adriana and posted it on his social media accounts. There was no caption, so Eric's fans began to speculate what the relationship was between him and Adriana. While they were eating, Adriana's friends became a bit more comfortable socializing with the sisters. Nicole here, she's always clueless, but don't let the stockholders find out about that. They think she's some terror female CEO from a novel, Katerina teased. Hey, I am not clueless. I just sometimes say stupid things, Nicole said in an attempt to save her name. Mark, Caleb, Fernando, David, who was the last one? Katerina began to enumerate names. A. Armando, the Italian, Veronica teased. Boys, Julia asked. Not just boys, Nicole's boys. Ayana laughed. Wow, I didn't think Miss Nicole had dated so many boys. Why haven't we heard of this? Natasha asked. As one of the biggest fans of this group, she was surprised that she didn't know this detail. She never dated any of them. Katerina teased. Oh, Natalia was surprised. Why me? Nicole said, shaking her head. Brother, I want his house. Please get it for me. Dad developed it. Suddenly Ayana, who was scrolling on her phone, shouted. Everyone gave her an odd look and she blushed. Chapter 42. Read, my brother is busy accompanying the love of his life, Ayana said, embarrassed. Ayana, isn't it too much for you to ask your brother to buy you a house? Adriana asked. Had she known that Ayana was her sister-in-law, she would have definitely scolded her. I don't think so. Dad gave him a house there already. Oh, I think you'd love it. It's got the most beautiful view and, Ayana stopped talking as she saw the message on her phone. Ced Reyes, stop it. Anyway, I think any girl would love it. Ayana said, emphasizing the word girl. Adriana, thank you so much for dinner. But I think we should go home now. Both Cedric and I still have work. Your brother has been making Cedric work so hard this past month that I've barely got to spend time with him, Adriana said as she got up. Hearing her attempt to leave, her friends complained, but there was nothing that they could do. Alright, let's all leave together, Ayana suggested. I'll just go to the women's room. Adriana went with her friends. Ayana was about to follow when Cedric pulled her back. What was that about, Ayana? Cedric asked in a cold tone. He was never cold towards Ayana. I'm sorry, big brother, I guess I got too excited that we were all hanging out in public, Ayana said with a frown. Ced, you should calm down. Ayana didn't mean it. We were all excited to be here with you and Adriana, Ram said as he placed a hand on Cedric's shoulder. Cedric took a deep breath. All right, I know it was an accident. Ayana, be careful next time, Cedric sighed. In the women's room. Adriana, why is Ayana being so nice to you? How exactly do you know her? Julia asked Adriana. I honestly have no idea. My first time Meeting her was when she bought the watches, Adriana said. Do you think it's true that her brother has a thing for you? Natasha asked. No, didn't you hear Ayana say that her brother has someone he's loved for the past 8 years? Adriana was relieved that the Reyes heir didn't really like her. Adriana, for real, if you weren't married to Cedric and the Reyes heir really liked you, would you go for him? Julia asked. I don't like the Reyes heir. He's everything Cedric is not, at least when I got to meet him. He's cold and so stiff. He also seems so mean to his employees. Plus he spends money so frivolously. You saw how Ayana wanted him to get her a house, Adriana explained to her friends. So you would always choose Cedric, no matter what? Natasha asked. I know he isn't who everyone wanted me to marry. He's the opposite, but Cedric is the only person who sees me for who I really am. Everyone always highlights that I'm pretty. With Cedric it's much more than that. Adriana was speaking with so much passion and love that she didn't notice the sisters enter the women's room. When she and her friends saw them in, awkward silence enveloped the room. Adriana was worried that they might take what she said about the Reyes heir the wrong way. Adriana, you're lucky to have found Cedric, Veronica said, breaking the awkward silence. I didn't mean to say anything bad about Mr. Reyes, Adriana said apologetically. Ayana laughed. It's okay, my brother has always been cold to other people, but he's a nice person. And he actually hates that I spend so much. He keeps scolding me for my trips. Ayana complained. Ayana is taking further studies in the US. She keeps making Ray empty out whole flights just for her to come home, Nicole said, rolling her eyes. What? Adriana, Julia, Sophia, and Natasha all shouted in surprise. And see, I mean my brother keeps scolding me about it, Ayana complained. Well, why not just get one seat and fly with everyone else? Adriana asked. It's Ray that keeps emptying it out. I even flew economy a month ago. Ayana shrugged. Outside, Cedric settled the bill while waiting for the girls. Why do they always have to go in groups? Miguel complained. Why, little brother, are you targeting anyone? Eric teased. Haha, not yet, but since you're busy being mysterious I always get stuck shopping with them. Cedric's the same, and Ray and Alexi are too busy to come out most of the time. Miguel continued to rant. Soon all the girls came out together, all smiles and as if they had a secret together. Eric placed his arm around Nicole and winked. Did you guys talk about us while you were in there? He asked. Don't be so full of yourself, Eric. Nicole pushed his arm off her shoulder. Not everyone is your fan. You'll eventually be a fan. I'm sure of it. Eric teased his little sister. Will we actually leave through the main door? Nicole asked. Among all of them, Nicole was the one that didn't like the attention. Yup, so use your big girl attitude, Katerina said as she lifted her chin and somehow transformed herself to a more refined version. Nicole, be refined. She sleeps in bunny pajamas, Miguel teased. I swear, Miguel, if you don't stop it I'll tell Dad you want to head the neurology department, Nicole threatened. Eric just laughed at his squabbling siblings. As they left the restaurant, girls began screaming. It seemed that Eric's fan club had found out he was there. To add to that, a lot of girls also had a crush on the four princes, so they waited outside the restaurant as well. Luckily they had enough bodyguards to clear the way. Cedric nodded to Leon and Mia to help with crowd control as well. Since it seemed quite a crowd had gathered, people quickly snapped photos of the group, and Adriana and her friends instantly became online sensations. Back at home, Gracia waited for Cedric and Adriana to come home. Her friends had sent her the photos they had found online of Adriana and Cedric with the four princes and their sisters as well as Eric Chan. As soon as they entered the door, Gracia bombarded them with questions. Adriana just shrugged her mother off and said that she was too tired to talk. So she and Cedric went straight to their room. Cedric, does Mr. Eric Chan like Nicole? Adriana recalled the events earlier where it looked like Eric Chan was flirting with Nicole. Cedric burst out laughing. Honey, do you want to know a secret? Cedric whispered. What? Adriana asked. Eric Chan is the eldest brother of Miguel and Nicole Chan. Cedric told her how he wished it was this easy to tell her his own secret. What? Adriana jumped in surprise. Yup, Eric Chan is actually the sixth prince. If you think about it. Didn't you see his watch? Cedric asked. I thought they just looked alike. Adriana still couldn't process what Cedric had told her. Nope, that's one of 10 watches. Let's go to sleep, Cedric said, holding his wife in his arms. 43 Chapter 43. The next day Adriana's phone was full of calls from her relatives when she woke up. I bet they are calling to ask about last night, Cedric teased. He had already prepared breakfast and Gracia had already attempted to nag him about their dinner with the 4 princes and the sisters. Cedric told her to just ask Adriana. I don't want to go to work today. Adriana screamed into her pillow. You could always call in sick, Cedric suggested, but he knew his wife was a workaholic and would never do that. Cedric, Adriana, Charles Hernandez called from outside. Yes, Dad. Adriana opened the door for her father. Your grandfather asked us to go home right now. Charles Hernandez had gotten a call a few minutes ago. Dad, Cedric has to go to work, Adriana said. It's all right, I can go. Cedric knew Adriana would need him there today. Are you sure? Isn't more company busy right now? Adriana was worried that she would get her husband into trouble at work. Ian and Camilla will be there, Cedric said, to put his wife at ease. All right, I'll get ready, Adriana said, going back into their room. Cedric took this chance to go to the home office to give Ian and Camilla instructions. When Adriana was ready, the whole family left together to go to her grandfather's house. Cedric was already expecting that the Hernandez family wouldn't take the rumors of the Reyes heir's crush on Adriana lightly, to add to that his sister had caused quite a scene the day before with what she did in the mall. Initially Adriana and her family only expected a few members to be present. They were surprised to find out that everyone was called home. My favorite niece, you're here, Frederick greeted Adriana. I've never been your favorite niece, Uncle, Adriana said quite coldly. Adriana, come here, Grandpa Hernandez called her over when he noticed that she had arrived. As usual, everyone simply ignored Cedric and left him to sit next to Adriana's now empty seat. Why did you call us over, Grandfather? Adriana asked. Adriana, many members of the family have been asking questions about you, her grandfather asked, holding her hand in his palm. Why, Grandfather, I'm all right, Adriana pretended not to understand what he was referring to. Are the rumors true? Is the Reyes heir pursuing my beautiful granddaughter? Grandpa Hernandez asked. Everyone seemed to move closer to listen to what Adriana was going to say, but Cedric sat back, confident with what his wife would answer. Grandpa, you shouldn't listen to such rumors, Adriana scolded in a playful way. Adri, if it's true then you must annul your marriage to Cedric, Grandpa Hernandez demanded. The rest of the family nodded and spoke in agreement. Some looked at Cedric and were surprised to see that Cedric was just calmly seated, not bothered by what Grandpa Hernandez had just asked Adriana to do. Grandpa, stop it, Cedric is right here. Show him at least some respect. Adriana was furious that her grandfather could say such things in front of her husband. She didn't expect them to think so lowly of him. If she were to annul out marriage and marry the Reyes heir, she would still end up with me, Cedric thought to himself. He would not be parted from Adriana, not in this lifetime. Adriana, your husband is of no use to this family. A much better man clearly likes you, so stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about this family. Frederick scolded his niece. My daughter said no, brother-in-law. Everyone was shocked with Gracia suddenly standing up for Adriana and Cedric. I may not like Cedric, but you cannot force my daughter to do something she doesn't want. I do not love the Reyes heir. I am a married woman and I will not, ever, cheat on my husband. Also, the Reyes heir already has someone in his heart. Ayana said he has loved that woman for the past 8 years, Adriana said. Very well, if you refuse to marry the Reyes heir, then I want you to use your new friendship with Ayana Reyes to expand Islands Inc., Grandpa Hernandez demanded. We aren't that close, Adriana said. Don't lie to us, bitch, John suddenly said. I am not lying, John. I don't even have her number. Adriana was telling the truth. Ayana never gave Adriana her number. They had just met by coincidence. Every time, well, it was more of Ayana was stalking her sister-in-law every time. You just want to keep all those connections for yourself. You are so selfish. Adriana, Asia said, stepping close to Adriana. Your cousin is telling the truth, Asia, miss. Ayana never gives her number to people. Cedric literally and figuratively stepped forward in an attempt to defend his wife. What do you know? You're just an assistant. You may be the Reyes heir's assistant, but you are inconsequential. John always looked down on Cedric. To him, Cedric would achieve nothing in life. And his cousin was just wasting her life with this man. Adriana, I hate you. Asia suddenly slapped Adriana in front of the whole family. Cedric ran to Adriana's side and touched the mark that Asia's slap left on his wife's face. He saw that Adriana was starting to tear up. He wiped the tears from her eyes and turned to confront Asia. However, before he could say anything, Adriana pulled her husband back, signaling for him not to act so rashly. She was worried about what the Hernandez family would do to him. There were more than 20 of them and just one Cedric. Cedric was not worried about taking on the Hernandez clan, aside from the fact that he could defend himself in a fight if needed. Leon and Mia were waiting outside the gate. They had their own teams and if needed be they could easily force their way in to save their boss. But the Hernandezes were still Adriana's family, and even if they mistreated her or had misunderstandings with her, Adriana still loved them and wouldn't hurt them. Let's go, Cedric, this isn't worth it, Adriana whispered to him. Cedric just nodded and put his arm around Adriana to escort her out. Are you coming? Cedric asked Gracia and Charles as they passed. Charles, who was always so quiet and never spoke up, suddenly looked angrily at his father and brother and spoke. I'm disappointed in you, father, and you too, Frederick. Adriana might not have married the type of person we all wanted her to marry, but you have no right to treat my daughter the way you just did. At that, both him and Gracia left with Cedric and Adriana. Chapter 44. Thanks, Dad, Adriana told her father when they got into the car. You're my daughter, Adri. Of course I'm on your side, her father said with a smile. Cedric, I meant what I said and I will always mean it. I will never leave you, Adriana said as she gave her husband a kiss on the cheek. I know, Cedric said with a grin. Back at the Hernandez house, Grandpa Hernandez was furious. Not only did Adriana refuse to entertain the Reyes heir, she even denied that she was friends with Ayana Reyes. The whole world had already seen their photos together from last night. Dad, I'm sure we can find a way to trick Adriana into cooperating, Frederick said. I have a friend, whose friend's mom's sister has lunch with Mrs. Reyes every week at a local country club while waiting for their husbands to finish a round of golf, John suggested to his grandfather. And what will we do with that, John? Grandpa Hernandez asked. He was quite pissed off with this grandson of his. He felt like John lacked the ability to run Islands Inc. in the future. Well, I'm sure the Reyes family is looking for a suitable wife for their son. If I can get that auntie to tell Mrs. Reyes that the woman her son likes will join them for lunch, then maybe Mrs. Reyes will push for Adriana to marry the Reyes heir. John explained his complicated and far-fetched idea. It doesn't sound too smart, his younger brother Henry commented on the side. Henry, unlike his siblings, actually liked Cedric and Adriana. Cedric even helped him out once when he was stuck in a bar fight. Henry, don't contradict your brother. His plan sounds good, Frederick scolded his second son. Henry just shrugged and left. He didn't want to be part of this plot. Auntie Janine, can you accompany Adriana to make sure she behaves? John asked one of his father's cousins. Janine Hernandez was a member of the Hernandez clan, as was 10 years older than John, who was turning 33 that year. I would prefer it if Asia and Celine accompanied me, Aunt Janine suggested. I'd love to come along, Aunt Janine, Asia said quite gleefully. It's settled then. John will arrange for this meet up, while Janine, Asia, and Celine will accompany Adriana to make sure she behaves. What will you tell her to get her to go? Grandpa Hernandez asked. I'll think of something, Grandpa. It shouldn't be hard, since as the new head of new partnerships, Adriana should be meeting people like this more often, Frederick told his father. After dropping off the family at home, Cedric asked Ian to send him a car to pick him up at home. Despite the events in the morning, Cedric had a lot of work left at more company that he needed to deal with. Sir, Marco called. Your father is asking if you could have dinner at the old house. Miss Veronica also called and she wanted to show you the designs for the house, Ian said as they drove to Morco. Okay, I'll tell Dad I'll be there. For Veronica, how about scheduling her next week? Cedric gave instructions as the driver brought them to Morco. It was the first time that the president of Moore Company was arriving in full sight of the company. In the past it had been a mystery how the president even got to the office. By the time Cedric arrived in the office, a rumor had spread that the president would be walking into the office without hiding his face. When Cedric's Maserati arrived, Ian stopped him from going down. Sir, there is a crowd waiting. I know you want to keep your identity a secret. I'll have the driver take us to the basement. Ian also handed Cedric a face mask just to be safe that no one would see what he looked like. They finally managed to make it to the office and things managed to calm down. Cedric busied himself with work before he knew it, the day was almost at its end. And he had forgotten to tell his wife that he wouldn't be having dinner at home. He tried calling her multiple times but she didn't pick up. Cedric was already feeling a bit worried, so he called Mia, who was keeping watch over Adriana. Mia informed him that some members of the Hernandez family had arrived to speak with Adriana and were still inside. Mia assured him that Adriana was safe and was in no harm. Cedric nodded and simply texted Adriana that he would be doing overtime, so she didn't have to stay up to wait for him. At 6 p.m. sharp, Ayana stomped into his office. Big brother, time to come home for dinner. Put on your stupid disguise and change clothes, Ayana said, throwing a mask and a cap on his table. Cedric just laughed and went to his private washroom to change. Of course, Ayana picking her brother up caused quite the commotion. The employees were once again waiting in the lobby as if there was a celebrity guest. Since the employees fear that they would lose their job if they offended the president was still stronger than their curiosity, they gave Ayana and Cedric space to pass. They were, however, very much disappointed to see that the president still covered his face. At the Reyes house, for the first time in 13 years, the family had a quiet dinner where they were all complete. Ayana told everyone about how much fun she was having in the USA and how she was learning so many things. Everyone also bugged Cedric to tell them about his poverty training and about Adriana. To them, the most interesting thing about Cedric's life was his meeting and marrying Adriana. Hey Seed, your aunties and I will be having lunch again on Wednesday. Why don't you come join us? They've missed you. You no, Priscilla Reyes said. Mom, won't it be too dangerous? Ayana knew that her brother wanted to keep a low profile, so it wasn't exactly ideal to have him walking around with their mom without a disguise. I can wear a disguise, and besides it in nationally a golf right. Everyone there more or less saw me as a child, Cedric said, confirming that he would go. Well, the new wives of course didn't know you back then, his mom said deep in thought. I'll just wear the face mask as usual and just dress differently, Cedric said, lifting the face mask he used to cover the lower half of his face. All right, so next Wednesday, his mom confirmed. Wait, I'm not free. How about the Wednesday after that, Mom? I can invite Veronica over since she wants to show me the designs she made of the house. Cedric had realized that he was swamped with meetings that week. Once they had settled on their lunch plans, Cedric bid his parents and sister goodbye. Ayana would be returning to school the next day, so they wouldn't see each other for a while. Before he left, he reminded Ayana not to make Ray empty out a whole flight for her again. Cedric's driver and Ian picked him up at the Reyes home and drove him back. Ian had to come along since there were some papers from the office that still needed Cedric's signature. Ian, don't you have a life outside of work? Cedric asked Ian. Of course I do, sir. I just have my goals, Ian told Cedric as he checked the documents on his lap. I have my goals too. I heard about your family history from Dad, Cedric said, waiting for Ian to tell him about it. 45 Chapter 45. Your dad saved me, Ian confessed. My family has always been well off. As a matter of fact, my dad and your dad were really good friends growing up. They still are, Ian recounted. And where are your parents now? Cedric asked. I still live with them, Ian said. Cedric simply nodded in reply. Long ago the Lims were on the same level as the Reyes, the Sabazians, and the Lawrences. Growing up, my dad had everything he wanted. He never wanted for anything. If he did, he got it. My mom was the same. She and your mom went to the same school, traveled the world together. Even when I was a child we had everything. Our business was doing great. But then things aren't always meant to run smoothly, and tragedy just struck one after the other. Cedric could feel the pain in Ian's voice. He did remember Ian from his childhood. They had gone to the same school, but they were never close. Ian always seemed to have a world of his own. Although Ian had friends, it seemed he was still different. He seemed smarter and better than those that were around him in School. Do you think we could have been friends? Back in school, Cedric suddenly asked. You and the other four were inseparable. You wouldn't have let me hang out with you guys, plus I was at a difficult point of my life back then. Back in elementary, my family's fall had already begun. Ian teased. What happened to your family? Cedric probed. I remember when I was a child, my grandparents had a schedule. Mondays, Grandma would be in the casino. After meeting with her friends there, they would pick me up from school and we would go to the golf course to watch Grandpa, Dad, and my uncle play golf. I would get bored, and they would send me to my golf lessons. On Tuesdays, those were boring days. Mom and my aunt would take me to piano and voice lessons with this national artist. I can't even remember his name anymore, but we studied him in class. Wednesdays we would book a cinema to watch a movie. Dad didn't like using the home cinema and preferred to watch in the mall. Once someone attempted to kidnap me, so they would book the whole cinema after that. Thursdays were French and Chinese lessons. I hated those. And every Friday we would go to Maharlika Hotel to have dinner and ice cream. I remember a man I would call Lolo Aguilar. I thought he was just some bum in the hotel who played his harmonica in the dining area. Apparently he was a national artist for visual arts. He liked me so much that he would often sketch me while I played with this charcoal pencils. I still have those sketches, you know. They are his unpublished work. Everything was going well. The business was booming and our company was set to expand. One day, my grandpa made a bad business decision. That decision accumulated till that one loss became hundreds of losses. My father was already telling him that he could help, that my grandfather needed to trust my father with the family business. At one point, Ian had a sad face as he told Cedric his story. At the time, we thought that was the worst, but it wasn't. My grandfather trusted a cousin of his to run a part of his business. My father was already against it. From the start, he told my grandfather that this cousin of his was already stealing money. My grandfather refused to listen. In 2 years, all of the money for that part was gone, and to add to that, we discovered that my grandfather's cousin had taken out so many loans from banks in my grandfather's name that the banks were already knocking on our door. And one day they just took everything. Ian took a deep breath as he remembered that day. He remembered his father was on the floor crying. He had always seen his father as a strong man, but that day his father just gave in to it all. It must have been hard. Cedric understood what Ian had to go through to an extent. It wasn't even the end. Soon after, my father's younger brother got sick. It was cancer, stage 4. We pulled what we could. I spent most of those days in the hospital, watching my family go through the fear of losing a loved one. My uncle was strong, and he made it. We thought, for sure, things would get better, but it didn't. My grandfather and grandmother both got sick at the same time. Next, my mom and aunt gathered all the jewelry they had left, including my parents' wedding rings. They sold it and used it to pay for my grandparents' treatments. My grandparents married for love, but my grandfather still looked towards other women. He had 4 other families outside of his marriage with my grandmother, each family with at least 2 children. He gave them houses, properties, and sent them to the best schools. When my grandfather's other families heard about our fall and about my grandfather's sickness, they all came knocking. At first I thought it was to help, or at least to visit my grandfather. I was wrong, of course. They came to collect. Ian again paused to take a deep breath. He hadn't told this story to anyone in a while, and it was quite difficult for him. He was good at keeping these emotions at bay, hiding his problems, and soldiering on. That was after all how he had been raised. They were afraid my grandfather would die and they would not be able to get what they wanted from him. My father and his siblings eventually managed to chase them off. They threatened to let the public know. My family, at this point, didn't care anymore. When they saw that, they realized to just wait in silence. We got lucky, I guess. My grandfather and grandmother got better, but they were different. My grandmother was demanding and distrusting, while my grandfather, who had once stood at the pinnacle of the business world, couldn't even stand on his own 2 feet. As Ian told his story, tears began to gather in his eyes. We lost our business, our cars, and we almost lost our home. My mom and dad tried to find whatever work they could, but people kept saying they were over qualified, and for the jobs they were qualified for, well, people rejected them since they had been working in the family business and had no jobs outside of that. There were days that we didn't know where we would find our next meal. Back in school I would go days with just eating one meal. Despite everything I got lucky. I got a sports scholarship and was able to study at a good university. I was always focused on reaching my goals, to get back what we lost, Ian explained. What about your mother's family? Cedric couldn't help but ask. They are the worst of all. When we had nothing and were barely eating, they turned their backs on us. When they saw me walking over 50 kilometers just to get to school, they just drove away. To them, my vengeance will be different. We were family. You never turn your back on family, Ian explained. Cedric could feel Ian's anger and his pain. No wonder his father had taken Ian under his wing and given him the tools to succeed. Are your grandparents doing better now? Cedric asked. Ian frowned and said, my grandmother passed away 6 years ago. My grandfather died a week ago. Cedric suddenly felt guilty for not knowing about Ian's grandfather. I'm sorry, Ian, I didn't know. It's okay, sir. At least now he is in peace. I just feel sad that they won't see how successful I will become, Ian said. Call me Cedric. You used to just call me Cedric, so no need to change in private. All right, Cedric. Oh, we are here. Ian stepped out of the car and opened the door for Cedric. Have a good night, Cedric. Cedric nodded and headed in. Unbeknownst to him, Adriana, who was still awake on the second floor of the house, saw Cedric arrive in a brand new white Rolls-Royce Ghost. Chapter 46. Why were you riding that car? Adriana asked, popping out of nowhere. Cedric sighed. He was tired of keeping secrets. Hey honey, wanna know a secret? Cedric teased. What is it? Adriana asked as they went into their room together. I'm actually the heir and Ian is my assistant. Cedric expected Adriana to be shocked. Instead, Adriana started laughing and rolling on the floor. I'm serious, Cedric said as he picked her up and placed her on the bed. You're just his assistant, Cedric. Don't let all the new connections you have got to your head, Adriana said, kissing him on the lips. Honey, I'm telling you the truth, Cedric insisted. Cedric Reyes, I love you. You don't need to be someone you are not. I don't want some rich heir to a fortune worth billions. I just need you, Adriana said in a more serious tone. Plus I hate that he makes you work late nights. I hate that he is so cold. I hate that he would let his sister just waste so much money. He has too much money. He needs to come down and see how other people live, Adriana continued. You would have it easier if I were the Reyes heir, Cedric said with a sigh. It seemed that despite him admitting who he truly was, his wife didn't want him to be that person. When have I wanted what was easy? Cedric, Adriana asked. The next day everything went back to normal. Gracia was back to hating Cedric. And Charles was quiet once more. Cedric prepared breakfast and drove himself and Adriana to work. Are you all right? Can you manage today? Cedric asked his wife. Yeah, Adriana said with a smile. I heard that your relatives came over after I left. I doubt it was to apologize, Cedric said, recounting Mia's report. Of course not, but they didn't make things worse either. It was work. They want me to meet some high-profile clients in a couple of weeks. Auntie Janine, Auntie Cecilia, and Asia will be with me. I think it's some sort of girls' gathering, Adriana explained. Cedric simply nodded and kept silent the rest of the way. Cedric and Adriana quickly sunk back into routine. They would wake up early, head to work, and go home late. The Alicia Mall project had already begun, and during the next Hernandez family meeting, Adriana was highly praised by everyone. Adriana felt that something was off. It was very much unlike her relatives to just drop the whole Reyes heir issue. Nonetheless, she took this moment as a win since no one was complaining or going against her. Cedric, on the other hand, was already gearing up for an expansion project for Morco. After the successful relaunch of more phones, he planned to expand their business to other countries and to other products as well. This would require a much larger factory and stronger technical abilities. Cedric was already assessing different candidates when he realized that he had one right next to him. He decided to make Ian head of the Morco expansion project. Since it wouldn't start for quite a while, Ian was to stay by Cedric's side before the launch of the More company expansion. Before Cedric had noticed, it was already Wednesday and he had promised his mom to have lunch with her. He asked Ian to Prepare the Rolls-Royce Ghost for him too. Used to meet his mom. He quickly changed into a black suit and tie. He had decided to begin wearing a black cloth face mask that would match his clothes whenever he went out as the Reyes heir. He wore his usual gold-rimmed glasses and stepped out of his office. As he passed by the lobby, the female employees began snapping photos of him. Many were gushing about how good looking their president was, or how they would want to be the future Mrs. Reyes. Since his return, Cedric had already gained quite a following, including his own fans club. Some of the members were actually employees of Morco. So Cedric's photo walking out of the office would quickly be uploaded on their group chats and forums where women would swoon over him. He'd even earned the nickname of the president among his fans. In the car, Ian scrolled through the forum and was suppressing a laugh. "What is it, Ian?" Cedric asked. "Sir, it's nothing, I was just looking through the forums," Ian said, showing his phone. Ian was surprised when Cedric took his phone and began scrolling through the messages. Ian_20, employees of more company are so lucky, they have a chance of seeing the president. Mistress of Deep, Mr. President, are you single? He looks so hot and mysterious. Like that. Reader 411, does anyone know if there are job openings at more company? I'd like to submit my application. Rabbit_room, look at the way Mr. President walks, just his walk melts my heart. Cedric laughed at the comments and gave Ian back his phone. At the Nationalia, Cedric's mom was sitting with her friends and talking about the latest gossip. Did you know that our classmate from university, Camilla, just got her third divorce in the United States? That's what you get for marrying too many foreigners. Lucy Ang Chan told her friend. Lucy was the mother of Eric, Miguel, and Nicole. She, along with the other moms, had known each other for a long time. They had gone to the same university back in the day. She should have just married Savvy. Look, he's a senator now. Rebecca Torres Sebastian. And your husband is the president. Victoria Bernasconi Abad teased her friend. Well, Camilla has always had an odd taste. Remember back in university when she was dating that fake rich guy? Priscilla laughed. Ah, look, it's Marovic, and she has guests. Lucy Chan said, casting doubt on their friends' companions. Every Wednesday, their little group would gather to wait for their husbands to finish a round of golf. It was practically an exclusive group of wealthy wives, the main members being Priscilla Reyes, Lucy Chan, Rebecca Sebastian, Victoria Abad, and Amy Lawrence. They allowed others to join them, and many people that wanted to gain favor in their businesses often did. It was like the Queen's holding court every Wednesday at the ultra-exclusive Nationalia Golf and Country Club. Isn't that your daughter-in-law? Lucy Chan asked Priscilla Reyes. It is. Cedric didn't mention she was coming here today. Why did she arrive with Marovic and those overdressed social climbers? Priscilla Reyes asked her friends. Chapter 47. Madams, I brought some friends, I hope you don't mind, Marovic de Dios said, referring to her companions. Marovic was the ultimate social climber. She had started as the assistant to a CEO who at the time was married. When the CEO's wife eventually died, she became his shoulder to cry on. Soon he began giving her gifts and spending more time with her. However, in an interesting twist, the CEO passed away in a car accident and Marovic ended up marrying the CEO's son. Now she was Mrs. de Dios, and everyone knew how she got the name. Marovic often tried to spend as much time with the madams to help her young husband. He was new in business, but she wasn't. She had been by his father's side for years and knew how important a role wives played when it came to business partnerships. Where is Amy? Is she late again? Rebecca Sebastian asked her friends as she blatantly ignored Marovic de Dios. Please introduce your guests to us. Marovic, Priscilla Reyes said, ignoring her friend. Oh, Marovic was quite surprised that Mrs. Reyes had noticed her after Mrs. Sebastian had just ignored her. This is my friend, Janine Hernandez, and her cousin-in-law Celine. Heron Hernandez, Celine's husband, is the president of Islands Inc. If I'm not mistaken, Mrs. Reyes, Alicia Malls has just started a project with Islands Inc. Marovic introduced the older women first, making sure to say what Celine's husband did for a living. I don't meddle with Alicia Corp. That's my husband's and my children's business. Priscilla Reyes said with a smile, making sure that Maravik and her friends understood that if that was their reason for being here, then their trip was in vain. Oh, it's actually not my husband that handles that partnership, Celine Hernandez immediately said. Priscilla just nodded back in reply. And this is Asia Hernandez, Celine's only daughter. She recently got engaged to Mark Chu. Maravik de Dios paused, waiting for one of the madams to recognize the name. When she just got blank stares, she just decided to continue. And this is her niece, Adriana Hernandez. She works at Islands Inc. Maravik announced quickly. Even if Adriana was the reason the Hernandezes had come over to Nationalia, Maravik wasn't too fond of the quiet girl. She saw more of herself in Asia rather than Adriana. Hello Adriana, Priscilla Reyes said with a big smile. It seems Mrs. Reyes likes my niece, Janine Hernandez said. She looks like a strong and pretty young woman. She reminds me of my Ayana. And I met her once, at the Moore Company launch. It was just a quick introduction though, Priscilla said. Ladies, look who I bumped into at the entrance. A Chinese-looking woman in her 50s appeared dragging a well-dressed young man in a face mask and glasses. Mother, aunties, Cedric said in a cold demeanor. Don't tell me you're not happy to see all your aunties. Come, sit, his mother commanded. When Cedric took his seat, he suddenly froze. What was Adriana doing here? Their eyes locked and Cedric didn't know what to do. Adriana suddenly looked elsewhere, but it was too late. Janine Hernandez had already noticed the tension between them. Mr. Reyes, is it true that you find my niece pretty? Janine Hernandez asked. Yes, pretty, Cedric managed to say. Adriana wanted to slap the man the moment he called her pretty. In her head, only her husband had the right to call her that. Then, Mr. Reyes, could the rumors be true that you have a crush on our Adri? Janine Hernandez said as she patted her niece on the back. Miss Hernandez, I don't think my friend's personal life should be any interest of yours. Ram Abad and Veronica had just arrived when he noticed the awkward conversation. I didn't mean to pry, sir. Janine Hernandez was afraid of insulting anyone from this group. Adriana, you seem uncomfortable, Veronica said as she approached Adriana. I'm fine, Adriana said with a smile. I know what will make you feel better. Why don't you come with me and Ram? I'm going to show Mr. Reyes the designs for his house. He's gonna move in there with his 8-year love, Veronica said with a giggle. Adriana just nodded and followed Veronica to another table. Are Mr. Ramabad and the designer Veronica dating? Asia asked. She had always dreamed of having a home designed by Veronica, but just getting a meeting seemed impossible for her. Cedric suddenly burst out laughing. The madams as well had an awkward look on their faces, and Ram himself had a disgusted look. Miss Veronica is my sister. That's disgusting. Come on, Seed, she's got something good prepared, Ram said, dragging his friend to the other table. Is Mr. Reyes' real name Seed? Janine Hernandez asked, quickly picking up on what everyone else missed. No, it's just a pet name, Priscilla said. In the other table, Ram made Cedric sit next to his wife as Veronica opened the files she needed to present to Cedric. Now Adriana, I want you to voice your opinion as well. You see, my client here has no taste, and this whole house is supposed to be a gift to the love of his life, Veronica accused. Cedric only grunted. What my sister said is true. I think my friend here will lose his wife if he doesn't let a woman judge this house first, Ram said, liberally taking a jab at Cedric, who couldn't fight back. But, Miss Veronica, I think whatever you make is beautiful. Adriana had heard of Veronica in the past. When she first met Veronica, she was shocked to find out that the legendary designer was from her country and was actually the sister of one of the 5 princes. Did you have her in mind? Cedric asked, making his voice a bit rough and cold. Because of that, Ram accidentally spit out his drink. Veronica just nodded. Luckily she had met Adriana a couple of times and more or less had an idea on what she would want. I didn't want this house to be another Veronica creation. I wanted it to be Anna. I wanted it to be as someone who knew you and her, even if I barely know her, Veronica began. So knowing you, I did a light design with traditional local materials. You'll have a main room for entertaining guests. I'm looking at this to be one of the bigger areas. To the left you'll have your public study, and to the right your dining room. Behind you'll have a hallway that will lead to any place in the house that's more public. 2 guest rooms with their own bathrooms. The cinema will be behind that. On the same floor you will have the game room and a meeting room, in case you need it, and then it opens out to a patio that runs the almost width of the mansion. As requested, some showers on the side if you have guests that swim in the pool but would like to just dress up out there. In the basement we have the wine cellar, the bowling alley, and a gym. On the second floor, you'll have rooms for all members of the family, your parents, in-laws, and your sister, should they choose to stay over. Each room is a suite, so it has its own entertainment area, bedroom, walk-in closet, bathroom, and balcony. I made each room designed to fit into the whole but still match their personalities, don't worry. Ayana's has her own office to the side, we know that girl tends to be a workaholic. On the third floor, we have the master bedroom that takes up half the whole floor, same with all the other rooms, it has its own entertainment area, a large main room for sleeping, of course. Then there are his and hers walk-in closets. I placed a makeup studio for her in a hidden jewelry closet. On the same floor I placed 2 offices that are connected by a secret door, and 5 other rooms, in case you know. Veronica laughed at the last comment. Wow, this looks amazing, Adriana said. As she studied the plans Veronica had just shown her, for some reason she felt like this house was built for her. Chapter 48. How about the guest house and the other amenities? Cedric asked in his disguised voice. I'm not touching the extra building and the guest house for the meantime. I want to discuss it further with her. You'll have an infinity pool, a putting green for Uncle, and a tennis court for Ayana. The garage will be able to hold 50 cars. I know you won't have more than that, you aren't Ram. Veronica teased, looking at her brother. What, I like cars, Ram shrugged. For the staff house, each room is spacious, has its own kitchen and bathroom. There is also a training facility for your bodyguards, Veronica explained. Further, your woman is very lucky, Mr. Reyes. Adriana was amazed by the house Mr. Reyes had built for the woman he loved. I think she'll like it, Ram told Cedric with a wink. Cedric simply nodded back. If that's all, we should go back to the aunties. They're the reason you came here. Right, Veronica said as she packed up her things. The group went back to join the madams' table. When they got there, Cedric's mom, Prysica, had the food served. Did Veronica wow you? Veronica's mom, Victoria, asked Cedric. Yes, auntie, even Miss Adriana liked it, Cedric said in an odd voice that got him confused looks from the madams. Wow, Adriana, you got to see the designs of Miss Veronica for Mr. Reyes, Janine Hernandez said in an attempt to push her niece back into the spotlight. Yes, the house was very beautiful, Adriana said with a smile. Cedric stared at her and smiled as well. He loved it when she smiled. His goal was to keep her smiling for the rest of their lives. See, Adriana, that's what a real man can do. My Mark already bought us a house. Asia couldn't help but boast about her fiancé and put down her cousin's husband. Mr. Reyes, our Adriana is quite a capable woman. Aside from being very pretty, she also has a good brain in that head, Janine Hernandez boasted. Miss Adriana seems to be quite an amazing girl, Priscilla said. Of course she knew that the woman they were praising was her daughter-in-law, so she had nothing against that. Sadly, madam, she is married to a lazy man, Janine complained, not knowing that Cedric was sitting on the same table. Oh, Amy, so Lawrence asked. She had known Cedric since he was in diapers, and lazy was the last word anyone would use to describe him. My husband is not lazy, Adriana said, with her fists balled on the side. Cedric wanted to hold her hand to calm her down, but doing so would only make things worse. You earn more than your husband, Adriana. You should really end your marriage, Asia suggested. Madams, please excuse my niece, she doesn't realize what she is saying, Janine Hernandez said apologetically. She's defending the man she loves. I see nothing wrong with that, Priscilla said, coming to her daughter-in-law's defense. You are the one that is wrong, Lucy Chan scolded the guests. Madams, I'm sorry if my guests offended you. I'll take them away now, Maravicta Dios apologized. It was an honor meeting you, madams. Adriana smiled as she and her group moved to leave. We would love for you to stay, Adriana, Priscilla invited. I'm sorry, madam, but they rode with me, and they won't be able to leave, Adriana refused politely. Then make them wait, Cedric said in a cold manner. They are my family, sir. If family might not Mean the same to you, but I will never.